How's it going, everybody? Welcome to another CCH podcast. We are now on season 3, and we have a familiar guest. If you look all the way back to season 1, even maybe the early parts of season 2, we had DJ as a part of our full-time staff for these podcast episodes. He was a full-time panelist, and of course, we have the great and the excellent Amelia, who is returning. So we're going to have probably a good bit of chemistry here tonight as we talk, because we've already had a few episodes together, but a lot has changed, and DJ has started his own reptile. I don't want to butcher it. Is it a reptile breeding, like a reptile propagation business? Like, what are you?
It's kind of like 50-50 right now. Like I get a lot of stuff from like local breeders and stuff like that, as well as breed a lot of my own stuff. So,
So that would be the type of business we're going to be talking about tonight. We have a few articles that we're going to cover, and we're just going to catch up with each other and kind of see how all this works. This is the first reaction, like there's nothing rehearsed before this, so we just kind of jumped into this, and it's a cold intro, so it's going to be an interesting conversation to see where this all goes, but it's going to be a good one tonight. So, DJ, why don't you just introduce yourself and just kind of talk about who you are for a minute, just to remind some of the viewers, and explain to us then afterwards what Misery Bay Reptiles is and like why you chose that name and different things like that.
okay, we'll do. All right. I'm Darren Julius. I am the owner CEO of Misery Bay Reptiles. Um, I currently work as a zookeeper full time while I'm starting to get my business up and going. So we'll see where that goes eventually. I'm hoping within the next like year or two that I might be able to get like a storefront and stuff like that and be able to move into more of that side of things rather than be a zookeeper, which I do enjoy doing. It's just I get to work with a lot of the reptiles and amphibians and stuff like that that I want to work with on the business side of things rather than just at a zoo where it's always like working with their projects and their stuff. You know what I mean? So I decided on the name of Misery Bay Reptiles just because it's very like localized to Erie. A lot of people in Erie, Pennsylvania know what Misery Bay is. It's so little history lesson to start you out for the day night, I guess. During the Battle of like 1812, many of like Oliver Hazard Perry and his men died from like poor living conditions, and so to remember those like they died in the bay. So like to remember those men that like died during that war in like the cold winters in the bay on the ships and stuff, then they named that section of the bay Misery Bay. So then I just thought it was a cool local thing, and I'm like a huge history buff, so it kind of works out.
That works. That's an
It's
interesting
certainly
name.
unique.
I'm sorry, what?
Oh, I was just saying it's certainly a unique one. That's a good choice.
Well, thank you.
So I think this kind of segues into the next conversation starter here about the breeding operations. So, like, what do you have going on with the reptiles that you're currently breeding? Like, what are some of the species? What's some of the details for us?
Okay, so a lot of the stuff I keep right now, there's probably I can count on one hand the amount of stuff that I've actually bred or like have breeding ages of, and then I can tell you a lot about the projects that I'm trying to get into and like grow up some young animals and stuff like that. So right now I've currently bred Utila Island Iguanas and Pancake Tortoises at a pretty regular rate. Utila Island Iguanas are really cool because they come from an area like, sorry, I'm going to mention Erie a lot just because my name and that's how I compared things when I talk education stuff here. So like it's like half the size. They come from an island half the size of Erie, Pennsylvania, and that's the only place they exist in the wild, and they're technically critically endangered. So working with them has been a real pleasure too, and I've produced them a couple times. I produced my first pancake tortoise last year, and they're just like a personal favorite of mine. um, I also am starting to work with, I have a pair of young Peruvian Matamata turtles. I have a female yellow-headed, I mean, yeah, yellow-headed temple turtle. So if anybody watching this has a male, please contact me. Um, and then I'm I have groups of yellow-headed Amazon river turtles and Indian spotted turtles, which I've got gifted to me through a program called TTPG, which is a Turtle and Tortoise Preservation Group, um, because they are on the Endangered Species Act list, so you can't like buy or sell them across state lines and stuff. But a lot of people trying to preserve them and produce them in each state can get them gifted to them through certain programs and stuff like that. So I did legally obtain those and have those that I'll be raising up and hopefully working with them in the near future. Um, I also recently got a female black-chested iguana, which are Tenosaura melanosterna for all the scientific name buffs out there, if you like Latin. um, so hopefully in the next few years I'll be producing those guys too. One of my favorite projects though to work on right now is actually like my European pond turtles. So like I could literally sit here and spew facts and talk about them for hours and hours and hours, but there's like over 14 different species and subspecies of European pond turtles. So there's a book probably like this thick, like as thick as a small dictionary about them. And I haven't even read through the entire thing yet, but the subspecies that I'm currently working with is Emys orbicularis orbicularis. But like I said, there's many, many that I would like to get into and focus primarily on like different European pond turtle species. But hopefully in the near future I can get into that.
Big turtle guy, huh?
Oh yeah, obviously.
What, oh, nice. What do you use for your setups? Do you have like big stock tanks? Are you using glass? Do you have ponds?
So right now a lot of the turtle and tortoise species that I keep are rather young. So like a lot of them right now are in like 55-gallon like totes and stuff like that, just for like ease of care and cleaning and stuff like that. So like when you think about it, there's probably like 2 to 4 inch turtles in those. So like it's not like they're not having a lot of space. And then I set them up with like filters and bubblers and little land areas and stuff like that for now. But my garage is actually in the process of getting turned. My 4-car garage is in the process of getting turned into like a giant turtle area. So then I'll have 300 and 750-gallon stock tanks out there to house a
Awesome.
lot of the bigger species and stuff like that. So that'll be really fun.
Which one's your favorite?
Um, I'm really partial to like the pancake tortoises just because uh me, my wife, and my kids like to give them all like fun breakfast names because pancakes, you know. So like I think we have like crepe and flapjack and toast and jam and Benny for like eggs Benedict and poach for poached eggs.
Cute.
But I don't name a whole lot of my stuff. That's a reptile keeper thing. Sorry. But I do name a lot of the pancake tortoises and a lot of the well, I guess a lot of the stuff I plan on keeping long term, I guess I do name.
So it just depends. So like, what are you doing then for parking? Are you just not gonna have a garage now, or are you gonna build another one? You're gonna build maybe like an 8-car garage, so that way, like when the time comes to take that one, you see where I'm going. Like you could just keep moving up. Like you could just
I
keep
should.
promoting more parking.
I
He's just
should.
gonna stack like a whole like parking structure.
Well, it started because when we originally got this house about a year and a half, almost 2 years ago now, in May it'll be 2 years, then we unloaded all the stuff from our previous home that we didn't want into the garage, so we just didn't park in there. And then it just sat in there for like a year, and then we parked outside anyways, even in the winter. So then it's not really like we just parked outside, I guess, so it's not really too bad of a gig, I guess, if I get some more turtles and more space out of it.
Did that take some convincing, or was she on board? Because like giving up a 4-car garage.
Believe it or not, my wife is like my biggest supporter, and she definitely was on board with it because
Nice.
I brush off the cars every morning and do all the shoveling, so I guess you can't complain too much.
That's awesome. So 750-gallon stock tanks. That's gonna be nuts. Are you planning to like
Yeah,
rent it out though, like for people to come and tour it, or like what's the plan?
I mean, I'm definitely not opposed to people like that I know personally coming and seeing a lot of that stuff. And then right now it takes up a vast majority, if not all of my basement. But um, but as a lot of them animals start to grow, I know I'm going to need to have a ton more space. So yeah,
Especially
definitely. Yeah,
Matamatas. Oh my gosh.
yeah, I love them though. They're such. The female is actually captive bred, but the male I had was originally wild caught and then sold to me from somebody from like I think it was Craigslist or something like that. Like they were just getting rid of them, but they're actually very good eaters on like just frozen thawed. Like I feed them tilapia, smelt, stuff like that, and then occasionally I'll get some feeder fish or something like that. But
Nice.
So all those turtles, is it safe to say that is it, I mean, obviously it's reptiles, but there was no mention of any snakes or anything like that. Is it primarily going to be like the iguanas and the turtles?
well, in the garage, yes, but my plan is once I get a lot of them out of there to be able to get a lot more enclosures down in the basement that'll house a lot of snakes and smaller lizards and stuff like that too. Because I am into a little bit of everything. Like I don't like there's some breeders out there and stuff and that's for them, but like I like to keep a lot of like the oddball stuff, you know what I mean? So like oddball turtles, oddball snakes, oddball amphibians, like anything that's like super popular, then I don't really like to get into too much, you know?
How's it been with like going to some of the reptile expos? Like you probably hit up the Erie Reptile Expo, right?
Yep. We've been there, I think, 3 or 4 times now. I can't remember off the top of my head. And then we've also been to the Meadville Reptile Expo, and literally every single expo we've done a little bit better and better and better so far. So we're just going up and up and up. My main business thing is the fact that like I don't want to be one dimensional. Like even if I end up with a storefront one day, then I don't want to be one dimensional and just like sell and educate about reptiles from the storefront. I rather do like we do a lot through Morph Market, like online stuff and shipping stuff, and then we do. Hopefully, we'll get into doing the storefront stuff, and then we do the local expos too. So it's kind of like a three-way thing that we can do all that here instead of just being one-dimensional and just doing one or the other.
Let's do a different comparison and contrast here. So let's compare what you work with at the zoo versus what you work with as a private keeper. What are your favorite species to work with at the zoo, and what's your favorite species to work with it? Obviously, we know the pancake turtles, but other than them, who else would it be for your private collection?
I'm really partial to like obviously all like turtles and tortoises in their own way, but to mix it up a little bit, like I definitely like my European pond turtles quite a bit. They're just young, so I don't get to do too much with them breeding wise yet. But I'm starting to get into a lot more snake species too. Like I don't know exactly what I'm that interested in yet because even growing up, I didn't keep too many different snake species other than like the typical ball python or corn snake. You know what I mean? But and no mock to them, but it's just not my thing because oddball stuff is my stuff. Like I like the weird stuff. Like there's a species I'm really interested in getting and trying to breed eventually is like Calabar pythons, um, where their head and their butt kind of like look the exact same, besides like the little tiny beady eyes that you can barely notice. And like whenever you're holding them, they'll wiggle like their butt end. So you try to pay better attention to that. So like if you are to like be a predator and like bite them or try to eat them, then that would be the end of that you pay attention to. But I don't know. They're really like seldom worked with species and seldom bred species too, as a matter of fact. So they're typically wild caught still. There's been I can count on one hand how many people have hatched them in captivity, even let alone like actually have bred them. But there's a little bit of information out there that I've been able to dig up, and I'd like to work with them too. Um, Zoo wise, what I like to work with a lot is our American alligator because one, I can keep them at home in Pennsylvania. Don't want to, would never. But I definitely like working with the big guy there. He's definitely, for having a brain the size of a golf ball, he's an awful smart alligator, and he knows what he wants. um,
I think brain size
and
has been like very over exaggerated in terms of things. Like insects are very advanced compared to what and we just, I'm sorry to cut you off. It's just like you hear this a lot in biology, like the comparisons, and like we always kind of give the trophy to the primates, but like man, the birds are just as capable. And like if we didn't have the ability to build things or create things, like our mind, like we would not be that much better off. Like the frogs would be better than us because they could survive year in and year out. They would be able to like hibernate. You know, we can't. We would have to find a cave or just deal with it. I don't know.
they're definitely like a lot smarter than people give them credit for, whether it's amphibians, reptiles, inverts, everything. They're a lot smarter than people give them credit for.
I'm sorry I cut you off.
No, you're okay.
So like you could just go and probably get an alligator from a lake. I mean, they get released so much. I mean, go to Pittsburgh and just have your pick and you could probably get one.
Yeah, there was one that was released in Lake Erie quite a few months ago, like over the summer, that I was on the news talking about twice. About
Oh yeah, I
like,
remember that.
yeah,
You were on the news talking about it.
yeah, at least twice, if not more. But
We got to find the clip. We got to like show that in the podcast episode when this comes out.
Lake Erie beachgoers expect to see an alligator certainly is not one of them. However, that's exactly what several people claim they saw Sunday near the East Avenue boat launch. Matt Mathias took a dive into the situation and has the very latest. Matt.
Well, Jen, that's absolutely right. Lake Erie is much further north than where alligators typically live, but after a sighting over the weekend caught on video, officials are investigating. After the sighting of a 4 to 5 foot alligator on Sunday, eyewitnesses reached out to Erie police, who then passed it along to the Erie Port Authority.
We're very diligent in making sure, keeping an eye on the water and of course on the land, and we have not had a sighting since then. But again, we have a team in place that is just monitoring our entire footprint and of course on the water, just to make sure everyone is safe.
Slomsky tells us they're working with local trappers and have had communications with people down south who have experience with alligators. They've also put up signage surrounding the area where the alligator was allegedly spotted, saying to tread with caution in the area. And while the hope is it'll be captured soon, reptile experts with the Erie Zoo don't believe the gator would survive through an Erie winter.
They do go into like a hibernation sort of thing called burmation, where they won't like eat quite as much in the winter. Their bodies will slow down because they're cold-blooded versus us and other mammals that are warm-blooded. And they need the sun, they need the heat to be able to metabolize anything that they do eat.
Julius believes due to the estimated size of the gator spotted in Erie, it's around 2 to 4 years old, and it'll likely try to have a diet consisting of frogs, tadpoles, fish, and maybe even smaller mammals. Right now, the working theory is that the gator was someone's exotic pet, and it was unfortunately released by the owner into the lake.
It's definitely more scared of you than you are of it, so it will probably just swim away from you anytime you're within like 10 feet of it, so it's not really going to come after you.
For now, the Port Authority will continue to monitor the area nearby the East Avenue boat launch, as well as land.
Yeah, I think I do remember seeing that actually. I was like, oh my gosh, I know who that is.
You should have sent us a message. We could have like highlighted that, man.
all right.
Awesome. If that happens again, you got to send us some stuff so we can kind of put it out there.
Sure, you can definitely dig it up. I think I posted it on my Facebook. It would be quite a while back, but I want to say July, August area, maybe September. I don't even know anymore.
But like next, I guess it's this year now, but this year, like what we go into with the spring and summer, if you have stuff like that, just shoot me a message. It'd be good to like kind of include that as a talking point, because then it opens up opportunities for us to talk about it on the podcast and kind of figure out like, you know, what's going on with like pets and releasing them. And I don't know, it just creates more conversation.
Absolutely.